Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with yet another Mattel Jurassic World Dino Trackers release. This time we've got one of the gigantic trackers. We have the Sinotyrannus, and this one definitely looks really cool. We've got another one of the bigger dinosaurs that they released. I believe this would probably be the same as the Carcharodontosaurus or the Yangshuanosaurus, like one of those size range dinosaur figures, and very cool species choice, that is for sure. Definitely one that I did not see coming, so also one that I do not have in my collection, so very exciting as far as that goes. And honestly, the figure looks really, really nice here at first glance. Sculpt-wise, it looks gorgeous. Paint-wise, it also looks gorgeous. The box art is pretty much the same, whether it's the gigantic trackers, the wild roars, or the Indoraptor. It really doesn't make a difference. The box art's all the same. And you can see here on the back, again, kind of a sneak peek of the action feature of our Sinotyrannus, as well as a sneak peek of the other Dino Trackers figure that we have out as far as this line goes, which is the gigantic trackers. We have the Stegosaurus. So let's pop this out of the box and check it out. So we've got ourselves the kind of tracking gear type stuff that we have for our Sinotyrannus and the Sinotyrannus itself. And again, very, very nice looking. We've got a pretty darn nice looking paint job on this one. And one thing I do like is that we have kind of like that splotchy color Mattel's been including a lot lately. But it's kind of like throughout the course of the figure on this one, it's like a light green I can see showing up here and there, which is definitely nice because it kind of gives it the overall appearance of paint from head to toe, something that a lot of these Dino Trackers figures have had, especially a lot of the Wild Roars as well as the Indoraptor, and now the Sinotyrannus as well. Very, very nice looking as far as that goes. Of course, no nail paint, but it is what it is. Regardless, it looks really cool, so let's jump to a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the Sinotyrannus, you can straight away see, again, we have a similar look kind of to the recent Dryptosaurus, where we have that really big, rough and rugged looking skin texture to the snout, and it kind of decreases in size. But if you look through the entire head sculpt, like there's a lot of different variation of scales to this one. We have all sorts of, again, larger scales, some slightly smaller scale, well actually not even slightly, quite a bit smaller, but even smaller, again, finer scaling there in the palette, and then some different looking scales here, a little bit more larger size scales up there. So a lot going on as far as the skin texture here on the face goes. You've got that nice reddish tone kind of running up here into that crest area and also leading down here into the face and then down along the jawline and then running down the neck before tapering off. We also have a dark green for the majority of the face of the dinosaur. You've got a really nicely painted eye, and that is one thing that I've noticed lately. Mattel's eye paint has actually been pretty spot on, which is a huge plus compared to where they used to be with that. You also have a yellowish tone here for the lower jaw, which is super, super bright, but looks okay. The jaw is, of course, articulated. You can see a really nice, kind of a lighter pinkish tone here on the inside of the mouth for this one, which is kind of a breath of fresh air because a lot of the more recent figures from Mattel have had like a darker pink, so it's nice to have this kind of more realistic, lighter pinkish tone. Really, really nice looking, nice gloss coat in there. All of the teeth seem to be sculpted pretty much individually. Very nicely painted as well. Look at that perfect looking paintwork for that lower jaw as far as those teeth go. And even though they're not absolutely perfect, the majority of the teeth here on the upper jaw are also really quite nicely painted. Honestly, I would say this figure holds some of the nicest paintwork I've seen from Mattel in a very long time. Again, as far as the crest area of the dinosaur, you can see some fairly nice looking detailing up there as well. Once you lead back here, you start to see some ridges picking up here, and they kind of run along the back and increase and decrease in size throughout. You also have some osteoderms and stuff here and there, some nice kind of creasing in the neck, and also some beautiful looking scale detail leading down the course of the neck. We also have a different variation of green that really nicely blends with the alternate tone of green, like the primary body of color as far as the green goes, and you can see that it just kind of like transitions back and forth throughout the majority of the figure as we lead down before disappearing right around here, which looks pretty cool. And the arm actually is that same color green that we see right there. You can also see here on the underside, first of all, the sculpt and detail looks great. You can also see kind of like some ridges here running off of the throat region as well, a little bit of like sagging skin right there in the throat region. But you can see that the arm sculpt also looks nice. You can see, again, a totally different style of scaling right there compared to what we see down here leading into the hand. Shockingly, we actually don't have scoots down the fingers, which is nice because it's a change of pace for what we usually get from Mattel. No nail paint, but again, a little bit of a gloss coat for the nails there on the hands. As we lead back into the stomach region, you can again see some really nice looking mixture of scales as well as osteoderms and stuff throughout. We do transition basically to the majority of the body being that darker green at this point, but you can still see kind of like some of that splotchy color that you often see. You can see it up here that Mattel's been applying lately, and it actually looks really good on this one as we have some variations of kind of like lighter greens and stuff throughout. You can also see as far as those ridges, again, they pretty big here in the neck, but then they decrease right here, and then they pick back up again in the hip region before decreasing. And you can see they're all just different varying sizes throughout pretty much the majority of the figure. You can also see a little bit of a different style of scaling here again up on the top as well. Leading down here into the thigh, you can see a ton of very large kind of osteoderms in that area. Really nice reptilian-like scaling here in the thigh. Also some nice muscle definition. You've got a really nicely sculpted out kneecap. A little bit of weird hanging skin here off the back of the leg, which is very interesting. I kind of like that. It looks pretty cool. Very different compared to most Mattel figures. But as we lead down, we've got the calf muscle yet again. And then as we run down here into the foot, you can again see more really nice vibrant scale detail as well as some scoots down the toes. Pretty much your classic Mattel theropod foot sculpt. Nicely, again, sculpted out nails with some nice detailing to them, kind of like some cracks and crevices slightly. And you can also see a gloss coat for that as well. We do have dew claws, but no paint on the nails at all. As you lead up here into the tail, you can again see a little bit more of that splotchy green as you lead out, some more osteoderms, some more scale detail, and again, some more of that kind of like skin leading out on the side of the dinosaur, which is very interesting. But we also start to pick up like kind of like a reddish, yeah, it's like a reddish or like a fairly interesting shade of a pinkish tone. It's a little hard to actually identify the exact color I'm looking at here because it looks more pinkish out here but more reddish right here. But as you lead out, you start to see that coloration overtake the tip of the tail. Again, the ridges here pick up pretty nicely here near the end of the tail as we lead out and end the tail in that coloration. And as you lead here along the underside, you can actually see again more of that kind of like splotchy green coloration throughout, as well as some pretty nice looking sculpt and detail through the entire underside of the Sinotyrannus. And you're not really going to see much of a difference over here compared to what we just saw on the initial side. It definitely looks really, really good on this side as well. And I would honestly say that this is probably the best figure so far from the Dino Trackers line. This is definitely my new favorite, no doubt about that. On top of being an incredibly cool species, it's just an overall beautiful looking figure from Mattel. And then we also have our Dino Tracker gear here, which you can see is pretty nice looking. It's just basically, you know, a blackish tone or a very, very dark gray. But it's got some nice looking detail throughout. Definitely looks pretty cool. Nothing overly incredible that we really need to go too far in depth with looking at, but it definitely looks neat, and I'm pretty excited to see what it looks like on the actual figure itself. I like the fact that we've kind of like the straps and stuff here to go around the neck of the dinosaur. So let's go ahead, check out the action features, articulation, and then we'll throw this on the figure and take a look at it. So as far as articulation goes, again, we did see the articulated jaw already. We can also see that we have articulation in the neck, where it can only go one way. It only turns to the right, so I'd assume that's probably part of the action feature as per usual. We also have articulation in the arms. Very jerky, but it can go forward and back and out away from the body. And then you also have articulation in the legs, forward and back, out away from the body, and we do have a swivel in the ankle as well. And then you also have two areas of articulation here in the tail back there, so maybe part of another action feature. I guess we'll see, because we do have two buttons here to activate the action features. And actually, before I even forget, because I have a bad habit of forgetting, there is the fax app code for anybody looking to add this to their collection. But we'll go ahead and check out the action features. So we'll press the button here on the right first. So that's the jaw for sure. And you can see that we basically have like a snapping action feature here with a little bit of a head tilt going on. And then this one I'm going to assume is going to activate a tail feature. Yep. So we've got a little bit of a whipping action feature here for the tail, both of which work pretty nicely, honestly. I kind of like both of those action features. And there we go, we've got our Sinotyrannus with its tracking gear on, and I actually love this. Like, that looks awesome. It honestly reminds me so much of something I would have seen on a Dino Riders toy. Like, it feels like an upgraded new school version of a Dino Riders toy, which, imagine how cool it would be if Dino Riders fully came back and started producing dinosaur figures like this. Like, that's dream-worthy right there. I would love to see that, and I would say this is probably the closest to that we've had so far from any toy line outside of that one random Dino Rider set we got a few years ago. But as far as a length goes, you are looking at, if I can keep it still long enough to find out, about 13 inches, about close to actually 13 and a half inches, somewhere near there, but the tail won't stay still long enough to get a pretty good measurement. I'd say about 13 and a half inches, or around 34, maybe approaching 34 and a half centimeters. And then for a height, the highest point is definitely the crest, about 5 3/4 inches, or around 14 and a half, closing in on 15 centimeters. It was a little hard to get that measurement exactly, but for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Clovisaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our awesome-looking Sinotyrannus from Mattel, and you can definitely see that it sports a pretty good size overall. It's not absolutely huge, but definitely very nice, very impressive size. For another comparison, here are some common folk from Mattel that we bring in quite often for comparisons, as we've got a Dilophosaurus and a Velociraptor here to further help show you the size. But for another comparison, here is the Mattel Carcharodontosaurus next to the Sinotyrannus, and this should help to show you that they are in a very similar size range, although I will say that the Carcharodontosaurus is a little bit bigger than the Sinotyrannus, so it does have a little bit of an edge as far as the size goes, but they are in that same line of the Jurassic World line, and also the same size range. Even though it's a little bit bigger as far as the Carcharodontosaurus, they're roughly the same size. And then for another comparison, we have the Sinotyrannus here next to our Dryptosaurus, the Wild Roar version, and you can definitely see that they're a fairly similar size, but the Dryptosaurus is a little bit smaller, showing again that the Sinotyrannus is in a little bit of a larger size range, but not too far off. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Dino Trackers Sinotyrannus is absolutely awesome and is definitely my favorite of the Dino Trackers line so far. You know, a lot can change as these figures release and I get more here into my hands, but as of right now, as far as the ones I've reviewed, I would definitely say this Sinotyrannus is my favorite. The sculpt is gorgeous, absolutely beautiful, very unique and interesting. Mattel has been really impressing me lately as far as coming up with very cool looking differences on their figures, things that I haven't really seen before, like on this one, that kind of like saggy hanging skin off of the back of the leg there and kind of hanging off of the tail. Even though it's obviously Mattel's take on a Sinotyrannus, I really quite like it, and it also, again, differentiates it from many other figures Mattel has released, but also that crest, which also, again, helps to differentiate the figure. But as a whole, again, sculpt-wise, it is beautiful, really nice, really vibrant detail, really crisp detail, and also a lot of extremely highly detailed scaling and skin texture and, you know, skin folds and skin wrinkles, all sorts of detail throughout that makes this figure look absolutely incredible as far as the sculpt goes. And the paint job as well is definitely one of my favorites from Mattel that I've seen come around in a very long time. There is a lot of really nice paintwork to this one, which also shows that Mattel, when they want to, can give us some really nice paintwork on our figures, and this thing is absolutely beautiful as far as the paintwork goes. I really, really like the paint scheme as well as the actual, again, tones of color that they've chosen for it. Really, the only thing that I feel like this figure needed to be a total package as far as this release goes would have been nail paint. That's really about it, because otherwise I think the paint work and sculpt work is fantastic. I also like the articulation as well as the action features. I like having kind of double action features, and the buttons aren't obnoxious. They're not like the Wild Roar buttons where they're just really obvious. They don't stand out as much as the others, so the buttons also are really quite nice. And again, we also have the awesome kind of like head tracking gear that we have for the figure, which really gives me that Dino Riders vibe. So as a whole, this is an awesome release, and I will include a link in the description for you to grab it for yourself from Big Bad Toy Store. Definitely a huge recommendation from me when it comes to this figure. Really, really is one of the nicest Mattel figures I've seen in a while. So make sure you check the link in the description. Go grab this from Big Bad Toy Store, or you can grab it at Target, because I know it is showing up in store at Target as well. So make sure you do that, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.